I want you to think about the last time you went without alcohol for more than a week. Not because you were sick, not because you were forced to, but because you chose to. For a lot of people, that memory is months away. For some, it is years. And for most of those people, the reason they never made it past day 3 or 4 had nothing to do with willpower. It had everything to do with not knowing what was happening inside their body during those days, and not knowing what was coming on day 7, day 14, and day 30 if they had stayed the course. That story ends today. Because what your body does when you remove alcohol is one of the most dramatic, most documented, and most misunderstood physiological transformations in all of medicine. The first 72 hours involve a neurological reorganization that in some cases becomes a medical emergency. Day 7 involves a liver restoration process that researchers describe as one of the fastest organ recoveries documented in human biology. Day 14 involves a sleep architecture restoration that most people have never experienced as adults. And day 30 involves cardiovascular, neurological, and immune changes whose magnitude surprises even the researchers who study them. Today, I am going to walk you through this transformation day by day, with documented specificity, because the difference between stopping and not stopping is not character. It is understanding what your body is actually doing and why. And that understanding for many people is the thing that makes the difference. Before we start the clock, you need to understand what alcohol is doing to your brain on a normal drinking day, because the withdrawal story only makes sense in the context of the dependency creating it. Alcohol works through 2 primary mechanisms. First, it enhances GABA activity at GABA-A receptors, producing sedation and reduced anxiety. Second, it inhibits NMDA receptors, the brain's primary excitatory glutamate receptors. The net effect is a profound depression of neural activity. The brain adapts. Over weeks and months of regular consumption, it downregulates GABA-A receptor sensitivity and upregulates NMDA receptor density to compensate, building excitatory capacity to counteract the depressant. The neural system recalibrates around alcohol's presence. When alcohol is removed, the inhibitory suppression disappears, but the compensatory excitation the brain built remains. The result is uncompensated neurological hyperexcitability. And the severity of what follows depends entirely on how much recalibration occurred. A 2021 review in the New England Journal of Medicine confirmed that alcohol withdrawal ranges from mild autonomic dysfunction to life-threatening seizures and delirium tremens, depending on the degree of neurological adaptation accumulated during drinking. And the severity of what follows depends entirely on how much recalibration occurred. A 2021 review in the New England Journal of Medicine confirmed that alcohol withdrawal ranges from mild autonomic dysfunction to life-threatening seizures and delirium tremens, depending on the degree of neurological adaptation accumulated during drinking. The brain's emergency brake has been lifted, and excitatory systems are running without the inhibition they adapted to. When alcohol is removed, vasodilation disappears, but compensatory vasoconstriction persists transiently, causing cerebrovascular constriction and a throbbing headache, identical in mechanism to caffeine withdrawal, and the degree to which the compensatory neurological hyperexcitability is unmasked. In the first 6 to 12 hours, mild to moderate withdrawal begins for habitual drinkers. Anxiety, elevated heart rate, elevated blood pressure, mild tremor, sweating. These are the sympathetic nervous system's response to the sudden removal of GABAergic suppression. The brain's emergency brake has been lifted, and excitatory systems are running without the inhibition they adapted to. The brain's emergency brake has been lifted, and excitatory systems are running without the inhibition they adapted to. Alcohol is a vasodilator. During habitual drinking, the brain adapts by upregulating vasoconstrictive mechanisms. When alcohol is removed, vasodilation disappears, but compensatory vasoconstriction persists transiently, causing cerebrovascular constriction and a throbbing headache, identical in mechanism to caffeine withdrawal. And a throbbing headache, identical in mechanism to caffeine withdrawal. For moderate drinkers, day 1 is uncomfortable but manageable. For people with severe alcohol use disorder, daily heavy drinking sustained over months or years, day 1 begins a window of genuine medical risk. A 2019 study in alcohol and alcoholism found that approximately 50% of people with alcohol use disorder experience withdrawal symptoms significant enough to require medical attention, with seizure risk highest in the 12 to 48-hour window. If you drink heavily daily and plan to stop, supervised withdrawal management is not a suggestion. It is a clinical necessity documented in the research, with seizure risk highest in the 12 to 48-hour window. If you drink heavily daily and plan to stop, Supervised withdrawal management is not a suggestion. It is a clinical necessity documented in the research. Day 2 and Day 3. For moderate drinkers, days 2 and 3 represent the peak of withdrawal discomfort. Sleep is severely disrupted through REM rebound. The brain's accumulated REM pressure, suppressed during regular drinking, floods back as intense, often disturbing dreams and fragmented sleep that provides poor subjective restoration. A 1998 study in the Journal of Studies on Alcohol confirmed REM rebound peaks at days 2 and 3 and begins resolving by the end of week 1. When alcohol is removed, the emotional states that alcohol was managing, anxiety, boredom, loneliness, stress, are no longer being chemically buffered. They are felt directly, often with an intensity that feels disproportionate. This is not a permanent state. A 2015 study in neuropsychopharmacology found that the dopaminergic reward system, suppressed during early withdrawal, begins recovering baseline sensitivity by day 4 to 7, with natural reward responses to food, social interaction, and physical pleasure beginning to normalize. But the window between the resolution of physical symptoms and the recovery of natural reward sensitivity is the window in which relapse rates are highest. The body feels better enough to move, but the brain has not yet rebuilt its capacity for natural reward. The person is functioning without the chemical buffer and without a fully recovered reward system. This is the valley that requires the most deliberate support. Day 7. 1 week without alcohol. The neurological recalibration is substantially complete for moderate drinkers, and what is happening in the liver at this point is remarkable. A 2012 study in the journal Gut used fibroscan elastography to measure liver stiffness, a marker of fibrosis and inflammation, in heavy drinkers before and after 1 week of abstinence. Measurable reductions in liver stiffness appeared within 7 days, reflecting rapid resolution of hepatic inflammation. Fatty liver, which develops in virtually all heavy drinkers, begins to reverse within the first week. A 2018 study in the European Journal of Gastroenterology confirmed that hepatic fat content measured by MRI spectroscopy was significantly reduced after 1 week of abstinence. 1 week. Measurable liver recovery. Chronic drinkers are persistently mildly dehydrated, reduced skin turgor, increased fine line visibility, flat, dull appearance. After 1 week of restored hydration, skin turgor recovers, facial puffiness from alcohol-driven vasodilation resolves, and the skin reflects its natural hydration. Most people who quit report looking visibly younger by the end of week 1. The research confirms this is physiological, not subjective. After 1 week of restored hydration, skin turgor recovers, facial puffiness from alcohol-driven vasodilation resolves, and the skin reflects its natural hydration. Most people who quit report looking visibly younger by the end of week 1. The research confirms this is physiological, not subjective. Day 14, 2 weeks in. Sleep architecture has fully reorganized. REM rebound has stabilized into normal sleep cycling. Slow-wave sleep, chronically suppressed by alcohol, is recovering. A 2015 study in alcohol documented that after 2 weeks of abstinence, former drinkers showed normalization of slow-wave sleep and significantly improved objective sleep quality scores. This is the first point at which most former drinkers report waking actually rested, not just having slept 8 hours, but having slept in a way that produces genuine cognitive clarity and stable morning energy. Cardiovascular effects are measurable. Blood pressure has returned to baseline. Heart rate variability, the beat-to-beat variation reflecting parasympathetic nervous system tone, and one of the most sensitive markers of cardiovascular health, has improved significantly. A 2017 study in alcohol and alcoholism found heart rate variability increased measurably after 2 weeks of abstinence, reflecting recovery of vagal tone that alcohol had chronically suppressed. The immune system is reconstituting. Alcohol disrupts gut barrier integrity, allowing bacterial translocation that drives systemic inflammation. 2 weeks of abstinence allows the gut barrier to begin repairing and the inflammatory load to drop. A 2016 review in alcohol research confirmed measurable improvements in multiple immune parameters within 2 weeks, with continued recovery over subsequent months. Day 30 and beyond. A month without alcohol. The brain has structurally changed. A 2016 study in neuropsychopharmacology using structural MRI found these reductions were partially reversible after 30 days of abstinence, with particularly robust recovery in the prefrontal cortex, the region governing impulse control, planning, and emotional regulation. At 30 days, the brain is not just functioning better, It is physically larger in the regions that matter most. A 2016 study in neuropsychopharmacology using structural MRI found these reductions were partially reversible after 30 days of abstinence, with particularly robust recovery in the prefrontal cortex, the region governing impulse control, planning, and emotional regulation. At 30 days, the brain is not just functioning better, it is physically larger in the regions that matter most. A 2019 study in the Journal of Hepatology confirmed that 30 days was sufficient to normalize hepatic fat in most patients with early alcohol-related fatty liver disease, a condition that, if continued, progresses to fibrosis, cirrhosis, and hepatocellular carcinoma. Cancer risk has dropped measurably. Alcohol is a Group 1 carcinogen, the International Agency for Research on Cancer's highest risk category, meaning causation is unambiguous. It increases risk of cancers of the mouth, throat, esophagus, colon, rectum, and breast. Cancer risk has dropped measurably. Alcohol is a Group 1 carcinogen, the International Agency for Research on Cancer's highest risk category, meaning causation is unambiguous. It increases risk of cancers of the mouth, throat, esophagus, colon, rectum, and breast. Here is what I want you to carry out of this video. Stopping alcohol is not a linear experience of feeling progressively better from day one. It is a specific, documented, physiologically mapped process that involves genuine neurological disruption in the first 72 hours, a liver recovery that begins measurably within 48 hours, a sleep architecture restoration that completes in the second week, and a brain that is physically reconstructing gray matter by day 30. Day 1. GABA and NMDA imbalance unmasked. Autonomic hyperactivation. Medical supervision required for heavy drinkers. Day 2 and 3. Withdrawal peaks. REM rebound. Liver already repairing. Day 4 and 5. Physical symptoms recede. Psychological layer emerges. Highest relapse risk window. Day 7. Measurable liver stiffness reduction. Skin hydration restored. Neurological recalibration substantially complete. Day 14. Sleep architecture normalized. Cardiovascular recovery measurable. Immune reconstitution underway. Day 30. Gray matter recovering. Liver fat normalized in many cases. Cancer risk declining. The body is not indifferent to the presence or absence of alcohol. It responds to its removal with one of the fastest and most comprehensive recovery sequences in human physiology. The timeline is documented. The mechanisms are understood, and the transformation for most people exceeds what they were expecting. What day are you on? Or what day did you get to before you stopped? Drop it in the comments, no judgment here, I read every single one. Subscribe to the channel because next week we are continuing to document what your body does when you remove the substances most people never question. And I will see you in the next video.